Good evening, everyone. This is Gunnar from Craft Beer Blab, and to my left or to my right, oh, he just dropped out there for a second. Usually my co-host is right here. He was here just a second ago. Jonah DiPasquale. We're here to talk about all things craft beer related. Dan K's in the house. Just got back from the gym, so enjoying a nice Gatorade. Well, yeah. Then Franz Gunnar. Nice. Awesome. Tonight I'll be enjoying a Odell Brewing St. Lupulin. That is their seasonal extra hoppy, extra pale ale. It's actually a very nice beer. I'll go ahead and pour that while we wait for Jonah to get back on. We do have some interesting, hopefully some interesting topics that'll bring some nice things to discuss. Looks like Jonah's trying to get back on. Yeah, Denny's has better Wi-Fi than Jonah's, yeah. So cheers. Here's, let's see if I can get some light on it here. So it's an extra pale ale, so it's not an India pale ale. It's not an IPA, but it's got a very nice hop presence to it. Probably a crisper than most IPAs, so not as sweet. Excellent beer. I did have a 12-pack of this, and this is the last of the bunch. Again, it's a very hoppy beer. Let's see here. I'm not sure what hops they use in it. I'm sure I could find it online. But lupulin is actually the compound in hops that brings the bitterness and flavor to beers. And so I don't know if there actually is a Saint Lupulin, but that fictional character, I think, is something that they came up with. And so it's kind of an interesting take on characters for beer. Good stuff. One of my other favorite beers is actually a regional beer, Summit Extra Pale Ale. Similar. It's nice and crisp, but yet a very good hop presence on there. I see Jonah is still trying to come in. Hopefully he'll be able to. Come on, Jonah, you can do it. Sorry about the technical difficulties, everyone. So hopefully he'll come in. I think he'll try again. One of the big things in news of all beer right now is this merger by the two huge companies. So I've waited a month. What's another few minutes? Yeah, exactly. So Anheuser-Busch InBev is probably the largest beer brewer distributor company in the world, right? They're owned by InBev, which is a Belgian company. I keep wanting to say South African, but I think they don't have those ties as much anymore. Is Miller South African? But so now you're talking about Miller. So AB-Inbev is merging with Miller/Coors. And so that will be the absolute largest beer company in the world. And something like this merger is, there he is. Whoa. Awesome. Yeah, so it's going to be something like I want to say $107 billion for Anheuser-Busch to merge with Miller Coors, which again, it's going to cause this huge, I mean, it's going to be, yeah, they're big enough already, both of them, yeah. And so now it's like this super giant company. And, you know, because it's so big, it is a conglomerate. They're they're not getting heat, I would say, but they're being looked at by regulatory commissions and the Justice Department and all kinds of stuff. They're looking into it. But what's not happening is that there's not like restrictions on things happening. I mean, they're just kind of saying, okay, we're watching this merger and we're seeing what's happening. A couple of weeks ago, I saw a rumor that possibly with this merger, they weren't going to be able to buy any more craft beer breweries, which I thought, oh, great. Well, so they're so huge, they're not going to be able to buy craft breweries anymore, which is good to me because then we won't see things like Ballast Point getting bought out by Constellation or whatever the other ones are. And I thought, oh, well, that's good. Then we won't see as many of those accusations being made. But then I've read recently that's not the case. They're still going to be free to kind of purchase whoever they want. So now you have this gigantic, huge company that has tons of money behind them. And they'll really be able to corner the market on things. So it's like other things. We got to see where it really lays out. I'm not thinking it's going to be good for the industry as a whole. I still don't know.
I just think that those brands, here's the thing. You can get, let's just face it, you can get a 24-ounce can of Budweiser for like $1.50, right? Whatever.
Right.
Call it $1.75 or wherever you are in your marketplace. Now, and that's at retail, by the way. That's what the end consumer is buying, right? So let's scale that back and say, all right, what's the markup on a can of beer at it's cheap. It is.
Yeah,
It
is.
is.
Yeah.
It's exactly. No, but that's the funny part. You're right. And what I'm saying is, we talked about this before. They have such ridiculous margins and leveraging capabilities with the retailers that they are almost in the retailers pockets. I mean, we talked about this before about the bodega that sells like the really good malt liquor versus like the happy local package store that sells craft beer. Well, guess what? They're catering to two completely different clienteles. One is conditioned to spend $11 for like a bomber, right?
Right.
Where other customers like $11 is an expensive 6-pack of beer. But the point that I want to make, is when you talk about like both Budweiser and Miller, um, let's face it, they are a different crowd. Period. Like I mean, you probably have friends that drink Miller. Dan, I'm probably sure that you do. Whatever. I mean, is Miller a beer that I would regularly go out of my way to drink? I mean, not necessarily. I mean, if I go over to my buddy's house to work on our bikes, whatever, and he's like, he gives me a Miller, and I'm gonna be like, oh, dude, I'm not drinking it.
Right.
I think that you have to look at where they see the opportunities to continue, right, to cater to the same demographic and audience that they already have. Because let's face it, right, they've got like a ridiculous marketing budget to begin with.
Right.
And don't think for a minute that they didn't try to uncover any possible rock to saturate their audience. So fast forward, why do you think that they all of a sudden had this fetish with buying out craft beer companies? Because they saw a customer that, first of all, wasn't spending $1.75 for a 24-ounce beer, wasn't spending $5 for a 6-pack. I mean, they have I wouldn't say necessarily indispensable income, but me, Dan, I mean, we know what our expectations are of a decent 6-pack, and let's face it, it's well over $12.
Right.
I mean, on average. I mean, you could probably get away less than that, but that's where I'm at, and I think that acquiring Miller is going to do a couple things. It again, it's going to increase their footprint. It's certainly going to increase their reach, and also too, don't get me wrong, I think it's also going to give them the ability to now leverage the portfolio of craft beers that they already had to market to that same audience that, or maybe not necessarily the same audience, but that audience that, in theory could be a like-minded craft beer customer, and go from there. I mean, here's the last thing I want to say. If you're going to take a customer that's drinking Budweiser, or they're drinking Miller, and you want to convert them to a craft beer drinker, they better be drinking your beer.
So, yeah, and so a stink case. I think I've made this comparison before. It's like Ford versus Chevy. Both sell a lot of cars, and they're decent vehicles, but both are loyal fans. Masses, they go nuts for their respective products and bash the other, when in fact they are, for the most part, very equal. Yeah, it is, and it's all marketing. Yeah, I see exactly what you're saying, because you see the Ford and Chevy and even Dodge truck commercials. I mean, one's bashing on the other. One's what is the new one? I think is it Ford is bashing on Chevy because Chevy has aluminum bodies on them now, or maybe it's the other way around.
Right.
And, then the other one is saying, well, we got aluminum bodies because it's lighter weight and we can get more power to the actual wheels, and da 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 da. In the end, pickup truck, you use it, you dump a bunch of stuff in it, and you carry it around, and they're good stuff, but we're not talking like Lexus or Mercedes or some super high-end brand where what was it? I think it was BMW, or maybe it was Lexus, where they took the ball bearing and they put it down the side because their seams were so equal that you wouldn't have the ball bearing fall between the seams. So there's the quality, and there's the marketing aspect of it. I think, like you said, we don't, because, and here's the other thing too, is I don't always like to, I mean, it seems like I'm always bringing up Anheuser-Busch, Miller, InBev and stuff, and being that I don't drink their beers, it's like, why am I always talking about them? But it does affect the craft beer segment, because they have purchased brands and they have run brands into the ground, or done things to brands because of purchases, and all of a sudden you're not drinking the same beer anymore. And it seems like we talk about that all the time, though. So seriously, yeah, we know that Yugo was the best car was ever made. Yeah, the little, was it even 3 cylinders in there?
If that. Well, and I think you're right, and it's interesting. We keep talking about a lot of these buyouts. I mean, you're right. It's gonna be interesting to see what happens to Ballast Point. I mean, with the big
Right.
shakeup, a lot of the long time vets that were kind of doing their thing. Not like they have the Colonel's secret recipe, but when you have been with a company, especially a craft beer company, for a good portion of its life, you take away a lot of those. I wouldn't necessarily say trade secrets, but I think a lot of the integrity and the culture behind what made the beer so great in the first place. And then all of a sudden, when you have the conglomerates come along, and now they're trying to essentially mass market a cupcake that you were making from scratch in your kitchen.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, and so what Jonah's talking about is, so Ballast Point, they were, I think it was in December, they were bought out by Constellation Brands, which is Corona and Modelo, I think. And just recently, the founder and one of the lead brewers left the company. So, 2 of the head people that founded Ballast Point, after the buyout here, 6 months later, they leave the company. And so it's like, okay, so obviously the core, or the heart of Ballast Point, is kind of crumbling away. And I think we've mentioned this a number of times too, because we sort of saw this coming with kind of the writing was on the wall when all of a sudden Ballast Point was releasing tons of fruit flavored inspired beers. Now, some of them were good, but it's like, okay, well, so they all of a sudden they get bought out. Then they're jumping on this bandwagon of fruit flavored beers. And it's like, okay, well, obviously somebody's pushing them to, okay, you got to experiment with fruit beers because that's what's selling. And now they got top level people leaving, and they're going to be replaced by corporate people. To me, it's not going to be good all the way around. I think we're probably going to see a decline in the quality of Ballast Point. Now, will they still make what is it, grapefruit sculpin and sculpin? I'm sure they will, and the recipe is probably going to be the same, and it's probably going to taste the same. But we're probably going to see more of, what is it, watermelon Dorado and,
mango even keel.
Yeah, mango even keel and just, or whatever the trend is for that year, whether it's, I don't know, if sours do become popular, then all of a sudden, we'll see Ballast Point, hot pepper sour beer or something, something crazy. And it's not that they're not doing this experimentation just to experiment and say, hey, we're going to try to make this beer that's good and maybe it's interesting. They're doing it because they're getting corporate pressure to do it. So it's nuts. I mean, any other thoughts on that?
Well, you're right. I think it's always it's always a strength in numbers conversation, and you have to figure that they're not going to do anything that's going to lose money, or it might be the conversation where they may like watermelon Dorado. It's just disgusting. I mean, I can't think of anything. I mean, it's sorry about that.
No.
Dude, don't do it. Do not do it. Watermelon Dorado is brutal. I mean, yeah, no, it was bad. It was bad. I have to say though, to Gunner's point, I mean, the first time that I had tried grapefruit sculpin, I do like it. I would probably, we've had this discussion. I mean, it would probably be a six pack that I'd bring over, to a crowd that I wasn't really sure what kind of direction, they'd go with their palate. Almost anybody can drink, a grapefruit sculpin and enjoy it.
Right.
But I think to Gunner's point, I mean, all of a sudden, like I even, this is my theory. I mean, I even find that it to be quite ironic that it happened so quickly. I mean, it's almost like they kind of had these recipes in their back pocket, and they're sort of scheming and said they're like, yeah, and then we'll buy the company, and then oh look at this, then we'll have like, what is it, 4 or 5
Right.
flavored beers, fruit flavored beers come out, right. And I think, the other thing too is, what you were saying is ironically, the timing of those fruit beers was very much like, what was going on amongst the rest of the marketplace. So, whoever made that call, either strategically knew exactly what they were doing, um, or you could call it, blind faith. And I would have to believe, that a company like that's not going to just, take blind chances and assumptions when dealing with, $1 billion marketplace, especially when they know that if they throw a brand out there like Ballast Point, which still to this day there's many people that don't know, that background story, because amazingly it disappeared, so not many people are aware of it anymore. So like,
Right.
oh, I drink Ballast Point, that's like super hep craft beer, and crap beer, not craft beer. I mean, it's great craft beer. I don't know.
No, it's and not to bring up another show, but will Ballast Point become the next shock top? It. I think it kind of will be. You gotta, like I said, the writing is on the wall. You have top level people leaving. You have this trend that they're doing of, okay, well, in this year we're doing fruit flavored beers. they'll probably come out with some new recipes next year of whatever their the trend is, and they might do good at them, and then they'll keep certain ones around. But yeah, I think it will kind of become like the next shock top. It's that people that don't know any better will go and get it and say, oh yeah, I'm drinking. And what's even worse is because Ballast Point commands a very high price point, then people are really under the impression that they are drinking something independent and very craft. Whereas just to me, it's not the case anymore. I mean, it is, unfortunately, and like we've said, and like I said, I'll probably still get some grapefruit sculpin every once in a while or whatever.
Sure, sure.
But it's kind of lost its heart and soul.
Totally. And here's the thing. If you look to the Budweiser of the world, they have tried to elevate the quality, or I don't want to say the quality, but the premium perception of their brand. Like I told you before, you can get it, right down the corner, you can get a deuce of Bud for $1.25, whatever, $1.50. Let's call it a day.
Right.
But like platinum, dark, there's like a bunch. I was in the store the other day, and Budweiser was trying to test the Budweiser Reserve or some shit like that. I'm like, come on, man. Budweiser Reserve, really? Like, it's going to be so much different because it's in a dark bottle, and you're charging me $3 more to
Right.
still less than what a bomber of a decent IPA or craft beer would be like. But again, same conversation. If there are people that are customers and they drink, they regularly consume that type of beer, they're gonna look at that and go, "Oh wow, Bud Reserve. Oh, this must be good stuff." Or, "Oh, Bud Platinum. Oh
Right.
man, I'm gonna get swaggering on Bud." But I mean, there's, minimal difference other than the stupid aluminum can. It's like, who gives a rat's ass? I mean, that's not gonna give me, any reason to want to go buy beer and drink it out of an aluminum can. I mean,
Right.
it's just ridiculous. It is marketing. Hey, Nicole Whitty, what's going on? Long time no see.
Yeah, nice to see you on here. Budweiser Reserve, aged longer in Beechwood.
Definitely. That's
Well,
so important.
What's funny about that is, so they say it's aged in Beechwood. Well, it's not aged in Beechwood. I had a friend that went to St. Louis, Missouri, and toured the facilities, and I hear it's great. I mean, you have these huge. I mean, it's just gigantic, the fermenting tanks. But the beechwood that they talk about aging is just strips of wood that they put in the fermenting tanks and let it sit on it. So you have this image, especially from the can, beechwood aged, and I'm thinking, oh, they got barrels of made out of beechwood, and they're fermenting that. No, that's not the case at all. But it is similar to kind of a trick that a lot of home brewers use, where, yes, everyone, beaver beer.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. But yeah, so homebrewers, they can purchase staves of certain woods to kind of infuse their beer with a certain barrel. If you wanted a bourbon barrel aged beer, you would get a stave from a bourbon barrel, and you would cut it up and you would put it in your fermenter. But you're not actually aging the beer in bourbon barrels. But there are breweries that do that. So you got to watch the language there, I guess. Another kind of interesting thing, since we're talking about fermenting beer, I just read this article today. A Minnesota brewery is experimenting with, instead of stainless steel fermenting tanks, they're using concrete. They saw this technique that some California winery was using, and they actually were going to make wine in them. And then they thought, well, you know what? Beer kind of, imparts flavors and stuff from whatever it's being fermented in. And so they're testing out beer fermented in concrete tanks. Kind of interesting. I don't know, I have no idea how it's going to taste. They said that their first batch they had to toss because it wasn't very good. It would be interesting to see the temperature control system. They use the glycol control, temperature control, plus the fact that it's in concrete allows for less temperature fluctuations than like a stainless steel tank in a regular commercial brewery.
Right.
Even though those are cooled with glycol, they usually have some hot and cold spots. I think with the concrete, you have less of that.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's the first I've heard of it. I'll have to do a little more research on that. But I'd be definitely down. Trying to taste the product that came out of that.
Yeah, I think and what I read about too was that part of the reason why their first batch didn't turn out so well was that about a third of the water was absorbed into the concrete when it was sitting. So what they did for the second batch was that they actually filled it up with water and I guess let the water soak in, drain it, and then fill it in with the beer and let it age in that. So then what's kind of interesting too is that they're going to be able to, if you want to do like wild or spontaneous combustion, that you can actually remove the top and it can drop the yeast in that way through the top there. Even our own mall is getting into the brewing brew pub right in the mall. Nice. You know what? I think we're going to see a lot more of those. I mean, a lot of restaurants are probably gonna open up their own little breweries to have their own beer. I think it's pretty interesting. The fact that a lot of people are willing to actually brew beer, I think is good.
Yeah.
Well, and hey, in a mall too, I think, you got a lot of foot traffic in a mall. So I think they kind of are onto something.
Definitely.
What about any cracking in the concrete, especially if there's any vibration? I didn't read anything about that, and that would be kind of interesting to know. I know that they use a special, I don't want to say type of concrete, but a special mix that has more sand in it because of, what was it? Because I think just for strength reasons. But like I said, I don't know if it's going to take off or anything, but it's definitely going to be interesting to see. And that's where this experimentation of what's going on. I'm getting dizzy. So the experimentation in brewing, and again, this is the difference between a small independent craft brewery saying, hey, we're going to try this and we're going to put this out because we think it's going to be interesting and we don't know how it's going to turn out, but we want to do it, versus a big company saying, hey, put out fruit flavored beers because that's what's trending right now. So, you never know. Concrete fermented beers may be the next big thing, and we'll see Bud Concrete or something. Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, it is. Well, you can see, and we've said this before, Dan, you're right. Craft beer appreciation is starting to become more common, and that packaged good stores and retailers are definitely starting to dabble more in that area. For example, it's like, think about like in bike shops, when like they're like, oh well, wow, we really should start catering to women. All of a sudden they ordered, women's bikes and women's clothing and started with the women's section and those kinds of things. I mean, it's not exactly the same analogy, but I feel like all of a sudden, like I use Wegmans. These stores up here, just they're ridiculous, but they've stepped up to the plate so dramatically, in the past like couple months that like they're no joke. I mean, it went from like, yeah, you hardly could ever find anything that you're looking for there to the point where they have some people that are really, really paying attention to what's going on out there in the marketplace. So at any rate, Dan, to your point about just, you're starting to see the stores that don't get it, or they're starting to get it because they may have customers coming in
right
and asking, hey man, do you have, Brooklyn, or do you have Long Trail, or do you have Surly or whatever?
Right.
It's hard enough to keep consumers coming back to your store, but if you can start stocking the things that they regularly want, especially considering how it's like skateboarding. Oh, well, this pro's the cool rider, and these wheels are the great wheels, and everybody's got to ride these trucks, and everybody's got to skate these shoes. I mean, you figure there's a certain shelf life with how long you're going to be able to stock that shit, and then just nobody's going to come in for it anymore. And I think that's craft beer in itself.
I know this isn't bike chat, but even in bike stores where you used to see numerous brands shift to just one. Yeah, Trek. Yeah, due to high incentives, almost forces the hand of the retailer. Yeah, I think you are seeing a lot more retailers that do, because of I call them strong arm tactics, because you know what retailers that used to be able to carry 2, 3, maybe even 4 brands, uh, they get kind of strong armed into ordering more of whichever brand and possibly ordering less of another brand because and I'm just saying Trek here as an example because they're on the list. But so Trek says to the dealer, hey, you got to order 10% more this year than what you ordered last year. Well, for a retailer, he's saying, okay, well, I got to order 10% more of your product. I got to cut back on, my other products because my budget going into this year is only going to be this much. So all of a sudden, then they're cutting out brands to be able to keep their core brand or their big brand happy. And so it's one of those things that it's common in the bike industry, but I don't really care for it. But it's kind of how it works, I guess. The bike shop I've been going to since a kid said that to me, and I believe him. Yeah, it it it's a shame on one hand, but then on the other hand, a lot of retailers. I mean, and on Bike Chat we talk about this a lot more, and we talk to retailers and stuff. But retailers have got to kind of progress with the times and maybe not rely on the big brands, say Trek or Specialized, as much. You're seeing a lot of interesting stuff coming out from some of these independent shops that aren't with a specific brand, and they're focusing more on fitting or they're focusing more on service and that type of stuff. So yeah, every small business should do that. You have to be creative. It's so true. It's the days of the old Schwinn store where you just walk in and you pick a bike off the shelf and everything is great. It's not like that anymore. So you have to be different. You have to correlation here is we've talked about this before. Big breweries give high incentives. Yeah, there's the whole pay to play thing that the big breweries do, and unfortunately, it does cut out a lot of the smaller breweries.
Right. Right.
It's and I think in some ways, if people and the whole perception thing, if people are asking for smaller independent craft brewery brands, the shops are going to carry them, and as more shops carry them, they'll become more popular, and it'll be this whole spiral thing that we're kind of seeing. So now you have breweries in the mall, and you have small nano breweries in strip malls and places. Almost every town, a lot of places has some sort of local brewery. So
Right.
we're going to see a lot more of that. Yeah.
Well, and I think the other thing to consider is it's just like coffee. I mean, there's people that will drink gas station coffee all day long and not care that there's a million boutique coffee shops or Starbucks or whatever. Where all this exactly where all of a sudden, you have people that are a lot more, brand conscious or quality conscious, and they do shop at the coffee boutiques, or they're going to Starbucks or wherever, and they know, yeah, yeah, you get what you pay for, which is what we talked about before. Let's talk about pizza. You know, do
Mhm.
you want your pizza fast? Order Domino's. Do you want quality ingredients? You know, it's Papa John's. I mean, you're never gonna get the same quality of a beer from your favorite craft beer versus, you know, a Shock Top or a Budweiser or a Miller. I mean, they try and they know and they understand, but you know, just as that cheap ass cup of coffee you get at the gas station, it's coffee. Like it serves its purpose.
Mhm.
It's warm. It's either caffeinated or decaffeinated. You know, just like Miller, just like Budweiser. I mean, they know the status quo of what it takes to be able to brew at the capacity that they brew, to be able to say, all right, per unit, per 6 pack, per case, per 12 pack, this is how much it's going to be. Then have the ability to look at the retailers and say, Mr. Retailer, now you know you Mr. Retailer, you know you only want to pay pennies on the dollar for this case, right? Well, Mr. Retailer, those brands there, like we just said, we just talked about the bike shop analogy and how that plays out. It's the same thing. Not only that, you know, don't think for a minute that the retail space is not playing into your purchasing habits. I mean, go to your local package store. I mean, you have to dig to get to the decent quality craft beer. I mean, you'll pass rows and rows of Budweiser, Miller,
Right.
and Coors and Labatt Blue. It drives me nuts. I mean, and they throw so much money and POP at these retailers. It's like you just want to scream. Like you saw, I don't know if you guys saw my social feed there over the 4th of July. I mean, dude, Budweiser had like two huge
Right.
tanks
Just
built out of like kegs, and it was. I mean, it was ridiculous. But I mean, in my mind, like like the average consumer that just is so sucked up by that hype, they're like, "You're right, America."
right. America, come on.
Yeah, right? And you know, meanwhile,
Hit the
you know,
beer fest. Yeah.
it's yeah, yeah, seriously.
No. Well, and so Nicole had touched upon something a little bit earlier that so where is it? I'm going to find that. I see more solar powered breweries in the future. That's great. Yeah, I know New Belgium is, I think, completely solar powered, as well as a lot of other breweries are like that. But then she said, and more hop farmers. And so I wanted to pigeonhole that into an article that I saw recently on NPR. And I just posted the link there. And what it is that hop farmers are getting a huge boost because of the craft beer industry. Generally, you're right, but giving credit where credit, there's a place not too far. Actually has mainstream domestics in the back and showcases micros in the front. Nice. No, yeah, and I think so. To touch on that too, we are seeing some stores. I mean, at least here in Rochester, it's okay. Link not opening. I put it in there. Okay, that's like 1%. Yeah. So there's some stores that understand and get that craft beer is an emerging marketplace, and you know what I tend to see is that they're kind of the same shops that have like wine snobs. You know, they have the wine tastings and the wine snobs. So we're the beer snobs, and hopefully we're not so snobby. But you know, they have that kind of same crowd and that same mentality of, hey, you know, some people are actually buying stuff for how it tastes, and so we'll put that up here, and we'll, you know, we kind of showcase it here, and hopefully that's working really well for them. But to go back to the hop industry, so the hop industry is getting a huge boost from craft beers. And so I was reading this article. And so just in this one example, so there's a hop farmer that 6 years ago, he grew 4 varieties on 350 acres, and he sold to a single dealer. So, you know, he would have 350 acres worth of 4 different hops, and he sold it to one dealer that then sold it to like a big macro brewery. Today, he has 13 varieties, 600 acres growing hops, and 12 accounts that also include local and regional breweries. So he's doubled his acreage, is producing 3 times more variety, selling to all different people that need them. So you have growth, and then you also have better distribution because he's not selling to one distributor.
Right.
So say it's Budweiser is buying all your hops, then all of a sudden, well, Budweiser, I can get a better price from so and so. Well, now he's selling to 12 different accounts. So if one account pulls out, he has 11 others to deal with.
Back up, right.
It's
Nice.
pretty amazing that just this growth in this craft industry is able to do that. Plus, we spoke with Roundtable Hops in another show, and so there's all this stuff that's going on with the hop industry. It's pretty amazing. I think it's showing that the demand for different tastes and different flavors are out there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, there's again a buddy of mine that I worked with in the ski industry. I mean, he's a number of years ago started a hop farm, and he's like every year, like it's same conversation. I mean, his business, his property, his farm, his crops, they just it's like they double every year because, like you said, he's like the demand is such, and is as well as the payout makes it, certainly sustainable enough for him to keep doing it. So I wish him the best. I'm trying to hopefully maybe connect you guys, get him on.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome. I think it's great, and I think if I was more of a farmer, I think it would be great to buy some land and start growing some hops, because I think it's just going to grow more. I mean, we got the highest amount of breweries in the United States than we ever had, even just before Prohibition. So I don't think we've reached bubble bursting status yet. So I think if people can get in on that industry, especially on the hop level, I think it's going to be great. I think people are going to be out there making money. So I'm going to crack open another beer here. There must be a lot of alcoholics up there. Yeah. We all drink all the time, every day. No. So what I got here is a Fat Tire and Friends collaboration. What is this? This is their Fat Sour Apple Ale. So, and this kind of goes into kind of my next topic of conversation is collaboration brewing.
That was nasty.
So this is New Belgium Brewing. What? That one is nasty. Oh, no. So New Belgium Brewing worked with Hopworks Urban Brewery to come up with this sour apple ale. I don't know. I kind of liked it. At least the last one I had, I enjoyed it. But, it does have a very apple-y taste. But I do like ciders, too. So it pours like a beer.
Tastes like ass. I mean, pours like a beer, tastes like it.
It has a little bit of hop presence. Green apples. That would be horrible. No.
Yeah, nice. Apple splatters. Hey, by the way, we did actually, my wife and I, for our anniversary, we did go to a really great place here in upstate New York called Muller's Cider House, and it was pretty awesome. I have to tell you, I was hating on ciders, but we should. No, we went on our anniversary. Anyway,
so you enjoyed it. It was good.
So, but there's I think there's a whole new level of cider, business that's coming out of the woodwork, and that I never really have looked at ciders as something that I wanted to really add to my, repertoire of beverages. But I'll tell you, there was some really, really, really good. Some were really dry.
Mm-hmm.
Some were sweet. Some were a little bubbly. Some were a little bit citrusy and tart. So,
right.
Whole different conversation. I mean, that might be another one as well. But you mentioned the apple thing. I mean, apple and it's funny. Apples and beer. Man, I don't know. That's like one of those lines where you're just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. It's like watermelon Dorado. It's like, yeah, I don't know, man. Somebody give me a toilet mint. I'll just end it on
Right.
that note.
Yeah.
But seriously though, I mean, if it's done right,
Right.
and it tastes good, I think, like you said, that's the beauty of craft beer. I mean, there's so many different styles of beers out there. you're gonna like a dozen that I can't stand, and vice versa. Dan's palate, Nicole's palate. Everybody's got, their different sweet spot of what they like, which is great about craft beer. It really is.
Right. Magners, is that Irish cider? I'm trying to look that up right now. Irish cider. Welcome to Magners. Where do you live? I don't think I've had it. I think the label or the artwork looks familiar to me, but I don't think I've actually had that one. Um, I'd be willing to try it. I like ciders, as long as they're not. I know you guys aren't huge stout drinkers. Prairie Vanilla Coconut Stout. Ooh. And Dan K says way more beer taste than apple, so it's not overpowering. Yeah, I like the drier ciders that aren't so sweet. Nicole says I don't even like coconut, but it was great. Well, I'll be sure to watch out for that one too. Nothing at all like Crispin or Angry. Yeah, Angry Orchard tends to be too sweet for me, and even Crispin sometimes is really sweet. We do have a couple of cider shops, I guess, here locally or regionally, I guess, in Minnesota. They're up in the Twin Cities. They're sociable, and they have a dry cider that I really like, as well as there's one locally that makes something called Loon Juice. That's it's actually sweeter, but it's really good.
Yes.
I'll be sure to try Magners, and yeah, I'll watch out for Prairie Vanilla Coconut Stout. I do like stouts. What was that? There's a local brewery here that has it's a coconut stout also, uh, but it's a little. I want to say it's a little too coconutty. New ciders will probably come out just around. Yeah, apple season is coming up. That kind of led me to another thing, is that because apple season is coming up, and I'm sure it's August, so we'll probably be seeing some Oktoberfest beers coming out here pretty soon. But on the tail end of that is all the pumpkin beers. I mean, everybody's probably going to be doing at least one pumpkin beer.
Dude, I still can't palate a pumpkin beer, dude. It's just it's brutal. I think I've always my whole thought train is like that's the beer you have in the refrigerator
Nice.
who company company that you don't really care for comes over. It's like,
Right.
here, this watermelon, it's delicious.
Yeah.
Have another one. It's even better. Me, I'm like this. I'm going.
Yeah. They're drinking all my crap.
Yeah.
Here's my thing with a lot of pumpkin beers is that 90% of them are just they're beers brewed with pumpkin pie spice, and I don't care for those. I mean, it's just like if I want to eat a pumpkin pie, I'll eat a pumpkin pie. I don't want it mixed in with my beer. Now there are it's fewer, but there are some beers that are actually brewed with actual pumpkin, and it's kind of an old world kind of recipe. In fact, a lot of beers when the settlers came to America would brew with pumpkin because there wasn't as much grain to brew with. So they used what was around. Hey, there's tons of these pumpkins around. Let's see if we can make beer out of that. So, they did that, and it turned out there's stuff in there that will ferment, and hey,
Yeah,
great. So I'm more willing to try those and enjoy those than I am the pumpkin spiced beers. And I'll kind of leave it at that.
oh,
I
dude,
know.
I can't. I don't know. I don't know. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I don't know. I've got definitely a good ability to try different things, but man, I don't care how many times I've had a pumpkin beer, and you guys like to rib on me about it. Oh my god, pumpkin spice.
Oh yeah, pumpkin spiced
Yeah,
coffee too. Yeah.
yeah, it's coming up.
Yeah.
I hate to say it, man. I hate to say it. What shit? We're in August right now. Oh my god, we won't be. We'll be seeing pumpkin spice on the
Right.
shelves, and
In about
it
four
drives
to
it
five
drives
weeks, we're
me,
gonna see it. It's everywhere.
dude. It drives me nuts because I think, and I've joked about this before, and not just so much beer. You watch how many ridiculous things come out that are pumpkin flavored, man. Oreos, Fig Newtons. I mean, good grief. It's like, come on, man. Like I get it. People that are into pumpkin, that's fine. But you gotta have that window. You just stop. It's like coffee's fine, beer's fine, whatever. But man, I remember I saw pumpkin spice Oreos. I just about lost it. I was like, oh my god, they've killed an American classic.
No, I know. Well, and it kind of mirrors, I guess, what we were talking about with Ballast Point. So oh, that was weird. So Oreos, it used to be what you could get just the regular black and white Oreo or the double stuffed, and then they started coming out with some of the different flavors, and some of them are okay, but then it's like all of a sudden they got 20 different varieties of flavored Oreos, and I'm just like, what the heck? Just give me regular Oreos and I'll be happy. Omegang road trip. Nice. Freebies. I like Omegang.
Yeah, buddy. Good shit, man.
No, yeah, they got some good stuff. Hennepin, I think, is one of their one of the ones that I seem to remember. Niagara Falls Beer Fest. Yeah, it is summertime. It is Beer Fest time. Snow. Uh-oh. What do we got? Dan K sharing something. Oh, no.
Oh, my God.
I hope it's false. Yes, it is false. Okay. Phew. That was just terrible.
Oh, God. Come on now.
No. Okay, so let's back up a second. So I did touch base a little bit upon Oktoberfest. Yeah. Not mad. You did give a disclaimer. That's all good. So Oktoberfest, we should be seeing Oktoberfest beers coming up, as well as different Oktoberfest festivals. I don't know if I'm going to be going this year to any festivals. Usually I go to Surly Fest. Yeah, exactly. How did Dan know about that? Why was he so excited about it? Hey, they got pumpkin flavored. So, okay, back on topic. Who's going to any sort of, I know Dan K, you said you just got back a couple days ago from German Fest. So it's getting to Oktoberfest season here pretty soon. Well, maybe not pretty soon, but in the next 4 or 5 weeks, we'll probably be seeing them. Who's planning on going to an Oktoberfest party?
Oh man, am I ever? Are you kidding me? That's what babysitters are for. I have to tell you a confessionary. My two young boys do have legitimate lederhosen because we do have some good friends in Germany, and they're freaking hilarious. But I have to tell you that the good news is in the box there was a catalog that had adult lederhosen, and I was like, dude, I don't know about you, but what dude would not feel cool drinking beer in leather freaking shorts with freaking
things
I didn't even know. I didn't even know. Like leather, I guess they're like leather bib shorts,
right.
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
what are they? More beer, yeah.
Oh, sorry. Tradition. My wife, she's yelling. She's yelling. Tradition.
It's a traditional outfit. Nice.
No,
so
yeah, we need to do that. So I may have to get some lederhosen. How about you?
Yeah, no, I'd be willing. I got usually I go to Surly's. They have an Oktoberfest celebration. Their take on an Oktoberfest beer that they call Surly Fest, and then they have a big celebration around that. And I think the last 4 or 5 years I've gone, and it's been a blast. I mean, you go and you spend time with friends and music and beer and drinking. I mean, it's just a great time. Diego Suarez, nice to see you on here. Thanks for joining in.
Nice.
This is Craft Beer Blab. We're talking all kinds of things about craft beer. We're just talking about Oktoberfest beers. But, actually, personally, I'm not actually a fan of the Oktoberfest beer. I mean, some of them I like. The Surly Fest I like, and I think who else makes another one? I think Summit makes a nice Oktoberfest beer. But usually, they're too lagerish, I guess, to me. And I don't know if that's an actual term, but I'm not a huge lager fan, so a lot of them are just a little too lagerish. Too many calories for the skinny boy.
Seriously. All right. I know. All right, crew. Hey, listen. It's 10 bells. I got to tap out. I got some stuff I need to get to, but love the show. Great to see everybody. Good to see Nicole. Thanks for coming out. Hope you're doing well and enjoy Beer Fest if I don't talk to you. And hey, Dan K, good to see you. Gunnar, thank you, my friend. Stay in touch this Thursday. Ladies and
What do we
gentlemen,
got?
we are doing Nickel City Cycles. They were
All right.
supposed to be on last week's show. Check them out. Hand-built bicycles out of Buffalo, New York, here in Rochester. So till then, Jonah D out. Everyone be well. Talk to you soon.
Thank you, everyone. And